Hey after Transtastic, my name is Luke. First of all, I'm sorry for not posting and just being somewhat inconsistent the past couple weeks. I'm in my last week of my second to last semester of university for my bachelor's degree, and I've got my exams in a couple weeks, and I've been working really hard because I'm saving up money for bottom surgery because that's in like 8 months time. Also, I'm on the floor because it's really cold and the heater's here and all of my work is on my desk and I'm in a little cocoon until I feel better. This week's topic is I'm not a real guy because blank. And it's something that I don't really relate to very much. And I think that might just be because I'm quite a masculine person and I'm quite a binary male person. And I think because of that, I don't really feel like there's anything about me that makes me less of a man. And I'm very comfortable in my masculinity and in who I am. But I also don't really deviate from the norms in that sense. The typical trans enough stories, I don't really relate to them because a lot of them are about being feminine or not relating to the whole, stereotypical masculine transition. But I fit very much under that stereotypical masculine transition. I never really doubted my transness. I never questioned anything. I knew from the moment I transitioned that I wanted to have bottom surgery, and there was no doubt about anything to do with my transition. And this is just my experience. I am one trans person. Don't take this as like an example for all trans people. I'm quite lucky in that I've never had to doubt or feel any doubt about my transition. It's definitely a unique experience and it's not something that everyone experiences, but it's just something I've never really had to deal with and something that I've never really gone through. People are all different. Trans people are all different, There are some trans people who don't have any bottom dysphoria, and I've got debilitating bottom dysphoria. Does that make them not trans enough? No, not at all. But like, me not understanding or relating to those experiences, that doesn't make me not trans enough, or that doesn't make me any closer to being cis. I'm still trans, just because I don't have that experience. I guess I don't really have too many examples of like how I feel like I'm not a real guy, because I don't ever doubt that I'm a real guy. I know I'm a dude, and there's nothing about me that makes me question that or makes me feel insecure about that. And I guess that's just sort of how I see it. I may have insecurities, but most of that's fleeting, and most of that, it doesn't actually stem from my identity. That doesn't make me feel like I'm less male. It just makes me feel dysphoric, or it makes me uncomfortable. Not having had phalloplasty at the current moment makes me dysphoric and makes me uncomfortable. And being short sometimes makes me uncomfortable, and having wider hips makes me uncomfortable, but that doesn't make me feel like I'm less of a male, if that makes sense. It's different. I don't really know if I'm explaining myself very well. I guess I don't really relate too much to the question, but I do definitely feel like a lot of the time, particularly nowadays, I feel like I'm very much alienated from the trans community sometimes because I'm not queer. And I'm using queer, I know that some people consider that a slur, but in the communities that I'm around and in the people that I'm around, queer is used as an umbrella term for LGBTQ, and I don't want to constantly say LGBTQ, so I'm just using it as like an umbrella term because that's how it's used in my social circles. I'm a straight guy, and I see my transition as mainly medical. I do identify as trans, and I do have pride in being trans, in that, I've overcome some incredible obstacles, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. But again, it's not necessarily about me being trans, and it's not an identity of being trans. For me, it's something I overcame. I feel the same way about depression. I feel the same way about anxiety. I struggled with crippling anxiety, and that didn't mean that I was proud as a person with anxiety. It was just more that I overcame something, and that's what I've got pride in. And that's how I feel about being trans as well. So I guess for me, the only times I really feel like I'm not trans enough is not in the fact that I don't feel like I'm validated as male, but in more of the fact that I feel like I am too cis-passing, I'm too masculine, and I'm too stealth to really be included in discussions as a trans person, and included as having an opinion that matters to the same extent as someone who is more involved in the trans community, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of people in the trans community, their identities are very linked with being trans, and their identities are very linked with being LGBTQ umbrella, whatever gender, whatever sexuality, whereas for me, it's not really like that at all. For me, my gender is very separate to being part of the LGBT community, and I personally don't identify as being part of the LGBT community. I identify as being trans and a part of the trans community, but for me, I feel that there's a separation there, and I guess part of that is from this sort of perpetuation that trans people are queer, and that's not the case. Not all trans people are queer, and not all trans people identify as such, but I don't really feel like I can identify as part of the LGBT community because I don't identify as queer, and because I don't feel like my gender plays as important a role as it should for me to be included in the LGBT community, if that makes sense. So that's the only time I don't feel trans enough, and that's really it. And that's not really to do with my gender, that's not to do with me being male, that's just due to the fact that I'm straight, and I view my transition and my transness as inherently medical, and that's just how my mind works. I'm a very medically minded person. I understand that other people feel differently, and I don't think that everyone has the same experience. I know that not everyone has the same experience, but for me, that's how I see my gender. And so because of that, I don't feel trans enough because I feel like my identity isn't as important as it should be for me to feel trans enough. But that's not to do with me being male. I'm sorry if that doesn't make sense. It's a bit confusing and hard for me to explain. But yeah, I don't really relate to the whole not feeling male enough because of certain things, because for me, I just know that I'm male, and I don't really have any doubts for that, and I've never really had any doubt, and I think because I'm so clear-headed about it, I don't really relate to that very much. Sorry, this is kind of a bit of a ramble, but I will see you guys next week, hopefully, if exams don't kill me. But we'll see. Bye.